Well, welcome everyone. I am Barb Jeffries, President of the Rotary Club of Park Cities. And I am joined today with Kyle Marmillion on the set. We're going to be partners in crime today. Well, I am excited because the weather is a little cooler, which is great, feeling a little bit more like fall. I know we have a lot to look forward to in terms of the sports fans out there. We get a little glimpse of back to normal with fall college football starting, and of course the NBA is still doing whatever they're doing in Florida. The Stanley Cup, oh my gosh, the Stars. It's just such an exciting time for Dallas, and I know we're all very proud of them. Also, I know my husband looking forward to this weekend with the U.S. Golf, with the Open coming up. And well, then there's baseball, but there is always next year for the Rangers. And of course, all of the other things that y'all have going on this weekend. So lots to look forward to. And with that, I would like to bring this meeting to order. We're going to get started with Paul Pirok. He is going to say our invocation and followed that by the pledge and the national anthem. But before we start with Paul, I just wanted to give you good news. Our own Marilyn Hardgrave, which we know and love so well for such a long time, loyal Rotarian over many, many years, had a bit of a scare, but she has good news. She was concerned. She was running a fever for several days, but had not one but 2 COVID tests. Both came back negative, in addition to a flu test, which came back negative. She's lost weight that she couldn't afford to lose, but she's getting her strength back. And thanks to dear sweet Lori Aldridge, who has delivered her very favorite creme brulee. When I spoke with Marilyn yesterday, she said, I am on my way with creme brulee. So keep her in your mind, keep her in your prayers. And if you have a minute, give her a call. I think she'd love to visit with each and any one of you. So let's get started with Paul Pirok, please.
Please join me for the invocation. Before I start, I want to point out that if you have any prayer concerns, please reach out to Barb Jeffries. If you would bow your head in prayer. Dear Lord, this has been a rough year for your people. A pandemic, fires, floods, storms, and public unrest. We all react to these situations in different ways. While some may see an opportunity to help and be creative, others see our situation very differently.
Greg.
As a result of isolation and continuing bad news, some of us are suffering from loneliness, despair, and even depression. We've become entrenched in our positions, both literally and figuratively.
It's not working.
We've often forgotten that we're all your people, and we bicker and fight amongst ourselves. First, O Lord, let us be mindful that better days are always ahead. We will get through this. But secondly, and most importantly, Lord, let us remember that as Rotarians, we value service above self. Let us be like that first group, the ones that see opportunity in disaster and despair. Let us put aside our differences and work together for a better world. As Rotarians, let us be creative in using our isolation time to help others in need. Perhaps this is easy as a phone call to someone who's feeling lonely. Perhaps it's helping at the North Texas Food Bank, or buying lunch for the volunteers at the Agape Clinic. Again, allow us to be creative and come up with other ways to help. Lord, we realize that it's difficult to be optimistic or helpful in times of crisis, but give us courage to be the best that we can in this difficult time. We need you now more than ever, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now if you would join me in singing our national anthem.
Well, welcome back to the studio. I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. He's going to tell us about this week's Marketplace Advertiser.
Yes, thank you, President Barb. Today we are thankful for RLG Consulting Engineers, who is our marketing place advertiser. They provide civil engineering, structural engineering, surveying, and forensic services to clients across Texas and the United States. Over the past 67 years, RLG has worked on numerous iconic DFW projects such as North Park Center, the Dallas Arboretum, St. Mark's, Hockaday, Green Hill, as well as numerous projects for SMU, Highland Park ISD, Baylor Scott and White, and Texas Health Presbyterian Hospitals. Recent projects include several residential towers in Uptown and Victory, Preston Hollow Village, and offices for Capital One, TD Ameritrade, FedEx, Raytheon, and the Pro family. RLG's staff includes 25 professional engineers and surveyors and over 65 total employees with offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Peoria, Illinois. Club member David Goodson retired after 38 years at the firm at the end of 2019 and was succeeded as CEO by club member Stuart Markison. Stuart represents the third generation of Highland Park Rotary leadership at the company that Ray Goodson, a past president of the club, founded in 1953. Thank you all, and please join me in thanking them for their support.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you, David and Stuart, and your history of partnering as a Rotarian with the incredible business you've built in Dallas. Other members, if you would like to also become a Marketplace Advertiser, we have openings. So please let us know. We would love to be able to highlight your business along with your Rotary pride during our meetings. Well, next up, I've got Greg Pape. We're going to go to Greg's recording where he's going to tell us a whole lot about our Rotary Foundation.
Today on September 14th that we have 21 contributors totaling $4,500. Two of those represents $2,000 worth of foundations coming from Rotarians as Paul Harris Society members giving $1,000 each and every year. We appreciate those contributions very much. I want to focus on our goal to end polio, and I want to emphasize the forthcoming date, October 24th, because that is World Polio Day. Rotary's been working to eradicate polio for more than 35 years, and our goal is to rid the world of this disease, and it's getting closer every year. Polio, as we know it, is a paralyzing and deadly infectious disease. It most commonly affects children under the age of 5. The virus spreads person to person, typically through contaminated water, and then it can attack the nervous system. We're in a pandemic this year, but just to compare those type of situations, in 1916, a major polio outbreak in New York City occurred and killed over 2,000 people in New York. Across the United States, polio took the lives of over 6,000 people and paralyzed thousands more. Today, polio remains endemic only in Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan, and it's crucial to continue this work to keep other countries polio-free. For if all the eradication efforts were to stop today, within 10 years, polio could paralyze as many as 200,000 children a day. There are 3 types of polio viruses, type 1, 2, and 3, and people need to be protected against all 3 types of the virus in order to prevent the polio disease, and the polio vaccination is the best protection. And that's current, those findings as of July 16th, 2020. It's notable to say that contributing to the Rotary Foundation is worthy. It covers many ills, challenges, but think about polio, because your contribution can be earmarked specifically to polio when you contribute to the Rotary Foundation. And it's my pleasure and delight to tell you that a Park Cities Rotarian and past president, Doug Means, contributed last year a significant sum not equaled by anyone in the last 20 years of our club's history. Kudos to Doug Maines. Keep in mind, fast forwarding, Rotary has helped immunize more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries and has contributed more than 1.8 billion towards eradicating the disease. October 24th, 2020 is World Polio Day. Please contribute through the Rotary Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And I appreciate all of our members who have donated to the RI Foundation and all of those of you who will be donating to the RI Foundation this year. Appreciate that. I'm going to go through a few quick announcements before we move on to our guest speaker today. I know we're all anxious to hear from him. The first is we went to the Holocaust Museum yesterday, the first of 3 tours that were set up by Janie Lovelace. There's 2 more next week. The one on the 23rd, I believe, is full, but the 24th has an opening. I also might encourage you to check on Tuesday because we had a 1 or 2 cancellations last minute. So there may be some openings open up next week the day before. So jump online and see if you can get in. We were, like I mentioned, there were some of us there yesterday. We were outside on their patio being socially distanced, but while you were inside on the tour, of course, masks are required. We had a wonderful, we were there about 2.5 hours and it was just spectacular. Yesterday was also, last night, a PCR Connect. It was held simultaneously on Zoom, which you can see a picture on the screen, in addition to in person at Maggiano's. So another first for the club. This is the first week we've actually been with each other in person. So it was great. Thank you to Zach for hosting Zoom and to Holly for hosting the in-person PCR Connects last night. This is our Legacy of Leadership. It is going to be held virtually this year and it begins on Monday night. There's still, if you would like to participate, you can sign up on the website or contact Cleve Clinton. The class that we have so far, you see pictures here. It's a good, solid class. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful team. We'll see what, after they're done with their series of workshops, they will have a project in the spring. So I'm anxious to see what these Rotarians come up with and the impact they're going to make in the spring of 2021 with their project. Monday at noon, the board is going to be meeting. We're going to decide about what the month of October will look like for the club, whether we'll continue to be live streamed or we will meet in person. If we do return to in person at Maggiano's, it will still be videotaped. So those of you that are not comfortable joining us can watch it from your own home. And those who will be joining us, there will be, registration will absolutely be required. Maggiano's will be serving a plated lunch, so they need to know how many plates to fill. We'll have a limited capacity. We will only have 4 people per table, and 9 tables. We will also place a few chairs around the perimeter for those of you that would like to come but not eat. So there will be limited occupancy. We'll see what the board decides on Monday, and then you'll hear from me that answer on my Meet You at the Water Cooler Monday emails. If you have any joys and concerns, please let me know. We'll mention them next week during our invocation. And speaking of next week, we have Dr. Hinojosa, the DISD Superintendent of Schools. So Jeff Sheehan will be in the studio, and I'm really anxious to hear what he has to say, and I hope that you all join us at that. Followed by October 2nd, our very own well-loved, dear Bill Sleeper is proud program chair that day. His daughter, Jessica Niemers, will be speaking to us about cybersecurity. So at this time, I'm going to return to a couple of recordings. We're going to work our magic here. I'm going to lead the set, and John will be in my chair when you return. But during these recordings, we're going to hear from past District Governor Ian Sullivan, and he's going to talk to us about membership in District 5810. And then also our brand new member, Kathy Wall, who joined us recently as a member. She'll be giving her new member speech. So with that, I am going to bid you adieu and turn it over to the recordings of Ian and Kathy. Thank you.
Just a little facts about me. I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, but I grew up in South Miami most of my life, elementary, middle school, and high school. One little known side note is I was one of the original Dolphin Doll cheerleaders when the Miami Dolphins started. After that, off to the University of Alabama in business school. Graduated, met my husband. He went to Auburn University in Emory. And we have one daughter, Leslie Wall Elliott, who grew up in University Park. She played golf at Highland Park High School as a captain, and then off to play golf at Texas Tech for a few years. My first half of the career was all newspapers, the Miami Herald, the Birmingham News and Post, Tulsa World and Tribune, ad director at the Bartlesville Examiner, Dallas Times Herald, a little bit of TV. After that, State Farm approached me. I've been an agency owner for working on my 28 years. I have had this agency off Lover's Lane at least 27, like I said, working on 28. I am surrounded by fabulous team members. We have 11 licensed agents with combined way over 150 years of experience. We have a lot of experience. We model our agency like State Farm does, and that is helping people recover from the unexpected and helping folks with their dreams. We amazingly take 22,000 claims a day with the State Farm organization. We do make a difference in the community, our employees, our agents. We have logged in more than 220,000 acts of good in 2019, 250,000 hours supporting charitable causes, and State Farm and our foundation company more than 6.5K in grants to nonprofits. We're all about the community. We work in the community. We're a full service agency. That's a little bit about that. Now, the next question is, why did you join the Rotary Club of Park Cities? First of all, thank you, Stan Wright. I have been supporting the Rotary parade for years, writing out a check to Tom Rhodes. And the very first experience was when I had a booth. I had the Good Neighbor running around and teaching children how to handle, young children, how to handle a crisis by dialing that 911. And we did that for several years. We moved on to other booths. We've passed out fans for several years. And then the banner. And then my first time experience as volunteering this year as judging. Thank you, Stan Wright. I also thank Virgil, who was originally told me to join Rotary. I was a Rotarian when I was ad director many, many years ago. So I love being at this club. I love being around leaders that are in this club. Amazing work that everybody's doing. So again, a real hats off to Stan Wright. What do I want to contribute, and what do I want to do with the club? Well, first of all, I was a sergeant of arms for many years, and I was more on a weekly activity of always being there at the meetings. But I love the parade. I'd love to do more with the tree lighting. I've always done the angel tree. I see that you all do, of course, the North Texas Food Bank, which I would be a big supporter of that. I'm big on Jubilee Center. That's what has been my heart and soul. There was, oh, and I see that you all are also involved in veteran support. So there's so many things that I can do and help volunteer. I like being a worker bee. I developed my own advertising club in Oklahoma a long time ago, and I was president of a marketing club in Birmingham. I'd love just to be a worker bee, but that's what I intend to do. I guess that's it.
Hello, Park Cities Rotary, and thank you, President Barb, for inviting me to speak today. I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about membership. I'm past District Governor Ian Sullivan of the Rotary Club of Plano East, and I'm the current membership chair for District 5810. You know, in the last week, I attended the Zone Institute, which, like everything else now, it was virtual. And one of the key parts of that institute was an address by the Rotary International President-elect, Shekhar Mehta. And President-elect Shekhar had several things interesting to say about membership, but a couple of things that really stuck out to me. One is anybody in your club that has been a member for longer than a year will know that everyone always says we have 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. You know, in most of my 30 plus years of membership, that's been true. He said, I'm sick of that. He said, I'm sick of hearing 1.2 million. We got to change that. The other thing he said was that his challenge whenever he becomes president will be that every Rotarian is challenged to bring in one member during his year of service. Obviously, that would pretty much double the membership in that year. How do we do that? How do we double the membership in that short period of time? Well, there are several innovative ways that are now authorized for Rotary to do, and I'd like to share a couple of those with you and challenge your club to adopt some of those. Your club is one of the best Rotary clubs that I'm aware of in this district or in any district in the world. So please take that challenge and grow Rotary and grow your impact in Dallas and around the world. The first one is a satellite club. Satellite clubs are easy to form. They only take 8 members, and the format, the structure of the satellite club is basically unlimited. It can be, you know, around just a different location, a different time, a different structure. It can be cause-based. If you've got somebody that is absolutely passionate about feeding the homeless, how about setting up a satellite club that's cause-based for feeding the homeless? If you have somebody that's passionate about the environment, that's now our 7th area of focus, set up a satellite. Or one that I particularly would like your club to think about is how about forming a satellite club that meets on Saturday? In the past year, I have probably received 25 or 30 inquiries of leads from Rotary International wanting to find a Rotary club, but they need to meet on Saturday. If your club would take that challenge, I'll give you every one of those leads and say, here are some warm leads of people that want to be Rotarians and they would like to be a member of the Park Cities Rotary. Please take the challenge. Thank you.
Hi, John. Welcome. Thank
Hey,
you.
Kyle.
Thank you for coming out. So I'm going to get started with the bio, and then we'll get into today's presentation.
Great to be here. I'm glad I'm back in the studio.
So John DeFillipo director of the John Bunker Sands Wetland Center, is an engaging naturalist with over 25 years of experience blending ecological concepts with business insights. And after receiving his Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration in 1992 from the Mississippi University for Women, he pursued a naturalist career with 2 nature centers in the southeastern United States, Camp McDowell Environmental Education Center in Alabama and Crow's Neck Environmental Education Center in Mississippi. In 2002, John refined his focus as an outreach educator with the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science, where he presented endangered species programs including live alligators while living in Mississippi. John served as the president of the Mississippi Environmental Education Alliance and was the recipient of the 2008 Environmental Educator of the Year Award. John moved to Dallas in late 2008 to accept the lead natural science educator position with the Pirok Museum of Natural and Science before becoming the director of the Wetland Center in March of 2020. In August of 2015, John received the new Outstanding Leader Award from the Association of Nature Center Administrators, ANCA, where he currently serves as president of the organization. Through his leadership skills and enduring passion of man's stewardship of the earth, he has guided the Wetland Center to become a premier example of environmental education with a strong focus on increasing conservation literacy of water, wetlands, and wildlife. So John, thank you again for your time, and we just really appreciate having you here today.
Great to be back, Kyle. Thanks for that great intro, and a big welcome to everyone in your homes and living rooms, or maybe in your office. I was back here in April, and great to have the opportunity to come back and talk about our organization. And a lot has happened since I've been here about 5 months ago. Some really positive things. Our organization had to close, of course, because of COVID, but we reopened on June 2nd and expanded our hours and expanded access to the public. And we're one of few nature centers that are having this increased access for mental health and encouragement for people to be outdoors. So if you haven't heard of us, after today, I hope you come out and visit us and spend time at our organization and exploring the wetland. On the screen here, you're going to see our bald eagle. I joke that people come out to the Wetland Center not to see me or learn about water conservation. They want to see bald eagles. And we are known for our native nesting pair of American bald eagles that have been on the property for the past 8 years. When we opened our organization in 2010, some bald eagles were seen around the property because this man-made wetland recycles water for over 1 million people in North Texas. And this wetland has created not just water conservation, but habitat for the future of wildlife species, only 25 miles southeast of downtown Dallas. They're beautiful creatures. Here's an image, a screenshot from a live camera that we have above the nest. And you can see the mother and father in the nest saying, okay, there's the egg, who's going to take care of it now? That was the first egg laid a couple of years ago. And normally they lay 2 eggs at a time, but some seasons they lay only 1. We're working on upgrading our camera system right now. So the end of October, you'll see a live stream, hopefully, fingers crossed, with some amazing partners that are making this camera come to life again, including Encore, Good Faith Energy, and Dan Lipinski, which is a solar engineer, and it's wonderful to get this camera back up working again, so stay tuned for that. Here's our family portrait from last year. You can see the male out on the arm of the nest, and then the female in the nest with the young. The reason it looks like this is in 2004, the nest was actually on a live transmission line tower that Encore operates. And with Encore's help and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we relocated the nest about 1,000 feet away on their own tower. Of course, without electricity, we unbolted the arm, lowered it on a flatbed truck, and attached it to the new structure just a few thousand feet away. And we stepped back. The eagles didn't get the memo, though. They kept coming back to the same location and trying to rebuild. Eventually, they saw their nest and moved back to that location. We have successfully, well, I should say they, I'm a proud grandfather, I think, sometimes when these eagles are born, over 13 eagles on the property in that time. If you want to see the eagles, they're about a mile away from the Wetland Center, But in that walk out to the nest, you're going to see an amazing scene of wildlife and birds, but you're also going to be immersed in an amazing habitat. Here's a quick image of our last eaglet. Last year there was one little eaglet born, and he fledged on Earth Day, which we thought was very fitting for us. So we hope to see 2 eagles this year as they come in. Well, our organization sits right in the middle of an amazing partnership for conservation. It's called the East Fork Water Reuse Project, fondly known as the Wetlands. And if you're trying to wonder, where is this at? Where could this massive 2,000-acre wetland be? It's about 25 miles southeast of Dallas on the Kaufman County and Dallas County line. If you've ever been out on 175 going towards Seagoville or the city of Kaufman, we're right on the edge of the East Fork of the Trinity River. This partnership was formed over 15 years ago with the help with the North Texas Municipal Water District, which probably many of you receive your water from, and also the Rosewood Corporation. Some of you might be very familiar with the Rosewood Corporation. It is run by Caroline Rose Hunt's family, the Sands, and that's why our namesake of John Bunker Sands, because her son was very instrumental on this property of increasing habitat, not just for wildlife, but also an amazing cattle operation for 20 years before this wetland was built. Well, the Water District approached the family, like I said, about 15 years ago to build this wetland to recycle water. And not only did the family agree, but they thought, what a great opportunity to create a one-of-a-kind nature center in the middle of the wetland and teach students and teachers and college students about conservation literacy of water, wetlands, and wildlife. It's known that the more we know about where our resources and our water and our energy come from, the more that we're going to protect that resource for future generations. Well, to give you a bird's eye view, if you look back at this image, this is the watershed of the East Fork of the Trinity River. Now, I know some of you that are in Park Cities and Highland Park live just outside of this area, but you probably visit friends or family or restaurants in this area. Lake Lavon was built about 60 years ago to supply water to, at that time, was just mainly farming communities. Well, we know that this region of Texas and some of these cities, including McKinney and Allen, have been the fastest growing cities in the United States for the past 5 years. Well, the district got a permit to reclaim 100% of treated wastewater from the wastewater treatment plants that they also operate. On this map, you can see all of the orange dots, and they represent the water flowing back into the East Fork of the Trinity River from these wastewater treatment facilities. Well, our organization was built and the wetland was designed to be south of all of these wastewater treatment facilities to capture that water in one area. And that's exactly what this wetland does every day. Over 50 million gallons, let me repeat that, 50 million gallons, over 30 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That amount of water is drawn into the wetland every day to be naturally purified and cleaned by nature. It's about 2,000 acres total, and it's actually a very small footprint, 3.5 miles north to south, and about 1.5 miles east to west. You can see on this image here, you're looking actually towards Dallas, so the perspective is looking towards the west. The north is where the highway is at 175, and the south going down to East Texas. Well, you're probably wondering, how does this project work? I would say it just like one of my board members has in the past. The wetland is helping nature to help man in the best way possible. The water is diverted into the wetland by the intake structure. That was put in place to prevent any large debris or logs or large wildlife from getting into the wetland, not through the pumps. That water is immediately pumped into 3 sedimentation basins. That sediment filters out to the bottom, sediment of clay, sand, and silt to the bottom of the wetland, and that naturally flows through the wetland by gravity. As it flows through the wetland, over 26 different wetland cells are managed by what you see here, which is called a weir. It's just a fancy name for a gate that as we crank that arm, it lowers the top of that gate into the wetland so we can allow about 3 to 4 inches of water to flow over the top so we can equal the amount of water coming into each wetland cell. The wetland cells aren't very deep at all. They're only about 18 inches deep, which provides the perfect habitat for native wetland plants. This is one of my favorite parts of the story because when they created this wetland, they needed native plants on the property. John Bunker Sands had done some tremendous work on reestablishing wetlands on this property because he was also a wetland conservationist and loved to make sure that that habitat was there for wildlife and migratory species that came through this part of Texas. As the water flows through, 20 different species of plants that were harvested from his original wetland and then propagated in the wetland filter out that water. For 1 million species of plants were planted, 1 million stalks of plants were planted throughout the wetland by hand. It takes about 7 to 10 days for that water to filter through the wetland by a process we call phytoremediation. Now everybody at home and in your office, I want you to say that word. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Phytoremediation. Very good. It literally means plants restoring balance. The plants are uptaking nitrate, phosphate, and ammonia. That's what is normally left behind in the wastewater treatment facilities. It's pulled up into the plants as food. It's stored in the tissues or the stems. It's volatilized and released back into the atmosphere, or it's locked into the soil. And at the end of the project, the water then is pumped underground from this building called the conveyance pump station. Inside that building, there are over 5 3,000 horsepower engines that pump the water through a 70-inch diameter pipe, 7-foot diameter pipe underground for 43 miles. This water zigzags past Forney and Rockwall, and roughly 4 hours later, the water ends back up in Lavon Lake. And look at this impact. Phosphate is reduced by 65%, nitrate reduced by 60%, and suspended solids by half. It's not only improving the water quality in Lavon Lake, but improving the water quality throughout the watershed that's serving these millions of people. And this is the biggest impact. 15 to 20% of the water in those communities right now has been recycled in this wetland. So if you're sitting there in a restaurant in one of these communities or at your home, that water in your glass has been recycled in our wetland. So we invite you to come out to see this water firsthand. Look at the impact. Look at the footprint. This is Lavon Lake. It's roughly about 2,500 acres, 25,000 acres. And our wetland footprint is 1/10 of that size. And within 5 years, the wetland has recycled the same amount of water that it would take to refill Lavon Lake in one time. That impact is huge. I'm going to pause here just for a second because sometimes there's a lot of questions about how the project works. So before I get into our organization and how we use this wonderful wetland, I'm going to open it up for any questions about the project or maybe how it works.
So, John, quick question from me. So you've got these wastewater treatment plants, and they're releasing the water. When it comes out, it has a higher percentage of these nitrates and things in the water. Mm-hmm. And so over time, did the state or the city start to realize this, and did that drive the need for the wetland, or how did they identify this specific area of the river and then move forward with the project to remove those elements from the water?
Sure. It's not uncommon to have nitrate, phosphate, and ammonia released from a wastewater treatment plant. But in this case, for that water to be recaptured and then reused, the amount of phosphate and nitrate needed to be reduced before it went back to the reservoir. The state of Texas allows a certain amount of phosphated nitrate and ammonia to be released in the river, and naturally, by degradation of sunlight, it'll reduce that phosphate and nitrate. But this was put in place to give basically a third buffer to reduce that before it's sent back to the reservoir. So it actually improves the water quality. It would happen by nature anyway, but we're just speeding up the process.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so when it was coming out, was it to the point where it was absolutely necessary to speed up the process, or did it just seem like a good thing to do for the water quality?
It was threefold. It was an excellent part to give an opportunity to create this habitat, but also to improve that water quality in a shorter period of time. Definitely.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any questions from the group.
I have a question, John.
Yes.
Let's go back to the eagles, Grandpa.
Yeah, right.
Do you name them?
We get that question a lot. We have decided not to name the eagles in spirit of Native American culture. We just decided to call them eagles.
Okay.
Now the young ones we actually do name. As you noticed on that one screen, we call them JBS 13. Of course, John Bunker Sands 13. Scientists normally we give them markers like that,
Okay.
but we have got a request quite a bit to name the eagles. We're probably just going to leave them as Eagle 1, Eagle 2, or male and female. So,
Okay.
yeah. And one is back. One is showed back up. It's just about the time they show back up on the property this time of year.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. All right. Well, let's talk about the wetland. I want to talk about the history just a little bit because it's a fascinating history. It's a photograph of John Bunker Sands. Unfortunately, he is not with us today. He passed away in 2003, very unexpectedly. But he left behind a tremendous legacy. When he was working as a ranch manager and helping to navigate this land back in the 80s and 90s, he was focused as conserving this wetland, not just for wildlife, but also for cattle. The family was very well known for large cattle operations, and those are winding down over the years. But he reinstituted and put different wetlands, not just on his property, but different areas around the state. He became so well known for his work on conservation of wetlands. You can see him in the photograph here on the left where he's putting up a wood duck box. You can see cattle grazing just outside of our wetland. In the bottom picture is actually Bunker giving a presentation to other ranch managers throughout the state of Texas. His work on holistic ranch management spread throughout the state. And in a nutshell, holistic ranch management was treating the ranch as a whole, literally. So he would not just leave the cattle in a pasture for 10 days. The cattle would be rotated every week to a different pasture. So every 7 to 10 days, the cattle rotated to smaller pastures, and it would allow that native habitat to regrow and increase the wildlife habitat on the property. It also increased the amount of water that was able to infiltrate into the area and make these pastures greener for the cattle that lived there. So what a great pivot point. But here's the beautiful part. When Bunker was creating this wetland, he worked with the same environmental scientist firm called Plummer, Plummer. They are located here in Dallas and Fort Worth, and they design man-made wetlands throughout the state of Texas and the world to not only recycle water, but reduce the energy coming out of wastewater treatment plants or a facility that has energy before that water goes back into the watershed. So Alan Plummer's group was fantastic in doing that as a project. Well, here's our organization, and we're looking north at the project. The Wetland Center sits the southern part of the wetland, and our mission is succinct in conservation literacy of water, wetlands, and wildlife. We were established to increase that knowledge, of course, of the wetland, but also where our water comes from and how important the wildlife depends on it. I know some of you out there are probably thinking, well, where did all this wildlife come from? And I'll talk about that in a moment. But they appeared. They either climbed over the levees of the East Fork, they flew in, or they came in as eggs on the feet of birds. It is a wonderful testament to see what can happen when man steps away and allows a habitat to come back to its true purpose. And in this way, you can see it up close and experience what wildlife happens. In only 10 years, this habitat has been reestablished. Of course, it's all about the kids for us, from fourth graders that come out from our local communities or high schoolers, which is our main focus at the wetland. Over 50% of our programming has been middle school and high school students coming from the very schools that receive the water from the wetland. So they're not just hugging trees and hugging wetlands and testing the water, but they're learning about the quality of the water. They're testing the water for that nitrate and phosphate and recreating what an actual researcher would do on the project. I love this photograph here because it shows the students collecting macroinvertebrates. That student in the middle is actually smelling the water. That's part of the testing. They collect soil samples and they bring this data back into the classroom to do comparative analysis of how excellent the wetland is at recycling water. We also do research, and of course, of our past 10 years, we've done research with Baylor University on the amount of water that's infiltrating into the wetland, the importance of the plant species so we can plant them in certain orders. We've also done research with the University of Texas at Tyler, looking at baseline surveys of all the species that have come in over the years. Right now, during this crisis of COVID, We're in the middle of 2 research projects that's looking at how not only our organization, but other organizations throughout the United States are actually changing to virtual programs. And they're going to follow us for over 18 months to see how our programs change over that time and the impact of the students that we serve. We're also working at change management. I know a lot of people out there with for-profit businesses use change management as a focus, and our organization is too. It's basically, how does our organization change and deviate from our strategic plan, but by making it still impactful for the future? So I'm very excited about that research and how that will shape our organization going forward. Well, let's put research aside in the wetland, because a lot of people come out and they not say they don't care about that. They want to see the birds. They want to see the conservation. They want to be immersed in nature. Just like this young girl on the boardwalk looking at a falcon flying through the wetland. We see all kinds of species. Over 260 different bird species call this wetland home. They're migrating through, like the wood ducks you see in this photograph. They could also be 7,000 to 10,000 snow geese migrating across our wetland in December and February. They actually nest in our wetland in the wintertime, and then they fly out into the farmers' fields that surround the wetland during the day to eat the grain that's left behind and then roost here again. We have never seen this number of snow geese this close to Dallas in over 100 years. Pretty phenomenal. My favorite species, because they don't get a lot of attention, are the other critters that call the boardwalk their home. Like the bobcat you see here on the boardwalk. He must have heard the shutter going off on the camera that was motion sensitive. They're pretty phenomenal. And then this one, probably one of my favorite photographs. This is a bobcat kitten just hanging out in the tree on the edge of the boardwalk. And you can see the image of part of the historic ranch that this property is still part of. But it is about the kids, from the little ones that can collect water samples and collect macroinvertebrates, to the older kids that are learning about, could this be a possible career for them in the future? We really love that older focus so it can help students to determine, I can actually make a difference in the environment and make a difference by learning about projects and science that focuses to make this wetland important. Throw this slide up real quick. I'm not going to read over it, but over our past 10 years, we have had phenomenal success in raising funds for our organization. Close to $2 million right now. That number's old, just about 3 months old, but close to $2 million now. Over half of our students are from middle school and high school. And we've also been involved in some amazing projects. One of my favorite ones was in 2015 when we did a U.S.-Russia cultural exchange. And our facility and our employees, we went to Russia for 10 days near St. Petersburg and visited an actual wetland center there. And then our colleagues from Russia came to the United States and spent 10 days with us. We still have a wonderful ongoing relationship with our colleagues in Russia. So I don't know if they're listening, but if you are, it's fantastic. Our own education manager, Linda Dunn, was awarded the 2019 Outstanding Environmental Educator of the Year for the state of Texas. And I won't read mine. You already heard that. But we love what we do at the wetland. We're a small team, but we need your help. I know many of you that might be listening now, either as this is a recording or live. Our organization is having some tough times. Thanks to the Communities Foundation of Texas, we were able to secure over $20,000 grant in April that helped to keep our entire team. We have myself and our education manager and 3 educators that work on board. So I'm extremely thankful to that foundation. And also yesterday, North Texas Giving Day, if you donated, we raised over $4,000 yesterday. So thank you. But we're a little risky at our organization. We've been in a quiet phase of a capital campaign to expand our facility since 2017. I'm happy to announce to your group today that we're moving forward. You can see our existing organization off to the left. And then this is our new facility that's been designed before COVID. Keep that in mind as I talk about this just for a minute. We wanted to mimic what was on the ranch anyway. So with the help of Good Fulton and Farrell architects, we designed 2 new classroom spaces that are silos that are on the outside, and then 1 silo in the middle that is a restroom. It creates an outdoor terrace that overlooks an amphitheater, and then an outdoor stage and pavilion. We could not have planned this any better for COVID. So doubling student capacity by 2021, and we should break ground in early December. We've reached our goal of roughly $480,000 of our $650,000 goal. So if anybody out there knows of an organization or a foundation that would love to contribute to increasing our capacity, either for 120 students or so we can increase our capacity for students right now that can't be close to each other, our new facility can do this. We would love your help. So if you want to know more, you'll see my contact in the bio. One other plug I want to make, we're one organization that is trudging forward with in-person gala. Wings Over the Wetland, which is our cornerstone fundraiser, is going to be at the Wetland Center October 24th. We got permission and approval from the state and the county of Kaufman to have 150 people on site. You'll be socially spaced outside, and the only thing you'll have to touch is your car, your silverware, and your glass with your drink in it, and of course your plate of food. It's being catered by Pecan Lodge Barbecue, and also we have a live bluegrass band that's coming up from Austin, Texas called Steel Betty. If you can't come on site, you can participate virtually. And we will deliver to your home a barbecue meal from Pecan Lodge and a 10-year anniversary picnic blanket. So you can spread it out in your living room and hang out with us and enjoy the evening. Tickets are $100 virtually, $150 on site, and we're also looking for sponsorships. I'm also happy to report that as of today, we've raised over $75,000 for our benefit. We want to reach our goal of 150. So check us out online. Just go to wetlandcenter.com at Wings Over the Wetland, and you can see this beautiful sunset here in the background. As I wrap up my presentation, I want to circle back to why we're really here. It's the quality of that wetland water that has enabled this habitat to thrive, and it's given us an opportunity to have community engagement, to reach out for research opportunities, and provide a habitat for students to learn in. Two of my favorite words, as I've taught over the last 25 years in environmental education, are stewardship and partnership. I know many of you out there run organizations that have partnered with others, and this is a fantastic testament to how we can create sustainable solutions, not just for water, but for energy, our land, and the hope that we can create habitat that serves not just the human purpose, but also wildlife as well. So join us at the Wetland. Here's our new hours. You can come out during the week. Tuesday through Friday, we're open 9 to 4. And then every Saturday, if you're an early bird, get the sunrise, just like Kyle over here, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. The fee is very nominal to come in, $5 for an adult, $4 for seniors, and if you bring your kids, they're for free. Also, check out our website for our upcoming programs this fall. We have some great Before the S'mores series, which are every Friday or Friday nights throughout the next 3 or 4 months. And we have some awesome programs for teachers and for homeschool parents that are looking for an opportunity to take their kids out. We've increased our homeschool programming, so that's probably our #1 program right now. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to open up the floor for questions. And again, thank you for letting me be here.
Absolutely. So as the questions start to roll in, you touched on the expansion, and that seems like a very substantial project. And the last time we spoke, y'all had selected a general contractor. So right. What's the update there? You know,
Great. Thanks for asking. We've hired a general contractor, and right now we're in the plans of the final phase of what the design's going to look like. And then applying for a building permit, and hopefully that'll be all finished before the end of the year. And if that's finished and approved, then we'll start construction in December. Construction should last for the 6 months, and then reopen our new facility next summer. That's the plan right now. So fingers crossed, but 75% of the way there with funding, which is fantastic.
Very good. And so will that affect the center during the construction, or is it'll be separate and the other?
Right, it's separate. So the ability is putting it just adjacent to the center so we can still keep our current facility open and operational, and people can come out. We don't have a limited number on site with COVID because it's 800 acres that you can access. I think I left that out, but 800 acres and over 9 miles of trails and levees and boardwalks that you can access, but it won't impact, so you can still come out.
One of those pictures on the boardwalk. Have you ever been walking out there early in the morning and been staring at a mountain lion or anything
Or
like
a
that?
bobcat.
A bobcat, yeah.
Once in a while, they see us and smell us coming from far away. I've had close encounters with raccoons, which is my favorite species right now. Raccoons on the boardwalk, definitely. But the bobcats and the coyotes leave us little presents, if you know what I mean. So we know they've been there.
I've heard that the animals like to play after night or after the sun goes down. And,
That's right.
So,
That's right. Those nocturnal creatures, for sure.
Good.
Well, any questions from the community today?
I have one. As humanity went underground as a result of the global pandemic, I'm curious what impact you saw at the Center for the Wildlife.
Right. Wow, that's a wonderful question. Since we're so far away from the wildlife, we didn't see any remarkable change in them. But we did see, as we were closed for almost 2 months, a lot more species were habitating the wetland right in front of the Wetland Center. So when we reopened, there were a lot more birds that were right there in the water right in front of the center. So we didn't see a remarkable change, but probably the most impactful was the sound. The sound pollution decreased quite amazing. We're in the flyway of Southwest Airlines, and of course that's reduced quite a bit. It's what I call the Little Dallas Dark Sky area. We're not an official dark sky, but we also do evening programs where you can see the dark sky just south of us.
Okay, and then one final question as we wrap up. About how many visitors do you see per year in a normal year?
In a normal time, we see roughly about 3,000 adults and about 4,000 students, so about 7,000 people total. In our expansion, we hope to double capacity of students up to 8,000 a year. We do smaller programs that are very focused on the kids. And of course, we definitely have seen an increase since we've reopened. I want to give a quick shout out to Dallas Culture Map. If you're listening, thank you for the article about the best kept secret and the Wetland Park, which is a social distance dream. So thank you for that.
That's great. And thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I'll pitch it back to you guys.
Absolutely, and just to piggyback on that last point, if you go on the Dallas Culture Map website, and there's a really nice article about the center, it's worth a read, and then get out there and check it out. And so, John, as a thank you to you, we are going to be putting a book in the library in your name.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and your time. And with that, we are going to get right into the four-way test. And of the things we think, say, and do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? With that,